When the news came out that I finally passed the bar and became a lawyer, one of the most memorable congratulatory remarks, if I should call it that way, from a friend was when someone told me, "Bro, congratulations, you just promoted yourself from writer to lawyer." I just felt I am indebted to my writer self to make a disclaimer. Ano sabi ko tuloy, and I don't know how it came across, "Bro, I beg to disagree, it's not really a promotion because if you are a good lawyer, you have to become a good writer. But if you are a good writer, you don't have to be a lawyer." I just felt that becoming a lawyer is not really a promotion, but it has nothing to do with my looking up to lawyering as the higher ground. No. Becoming a lawyer was more an economic, financial decision on my part than a genuine desire to leave writing because it's my first love and you don't just throw it away or walk away. In fact, up to now, I continue to write because I still have to go back to where I came from to commune with the muses and try writing. Compañeros, compañeras, our vlog for today is about writing. Maganda po ang usapan natin ngayon. Well, it's late at night and I couldn't bring myself to sleep. I guess the counting ships doesn't work anymore. I must have counted 1,000,000 ships and some cows and some horses and carabaos, but still I couldn't sleep. So I just have to come down and do the next best thing. Make my sleepless night productive by making this video. Alam nyo, nung nagsimula akong as a professional, I was lucky to become a writer. In high school, some people say, you can write, so maybe you should invest on your writing and prepare for a future as a writer. And I was able to do that. I was writing documentaries until one day I realized that writer wouldn't pay you well, much less help you raise a family. There was a time I have no fare money, pampasayla sa jeep, wala ako, so I have to walk to the office. Those were the times when I was raising 4 kids and they were all studying and I was the only breadwinner in the family. Anyway, to cut the long story short, I tried my luck at lawyering by studying part-time and finishing law school after 6 years and then passing the bar later on. But every now and then I still go back to writing because you can't just turn your back on your roots from where you came from. Every now and then, like today, I get the itch to write. In fact, one of the most memorable things I have written as a lawyer is not really the pleadings or the documents, legal documents, or the opinions, legal opinions that I rendered. But actually, medyo may pagka-baduy. But I once wrote a poem that a lot of people loved. In fact, when that poem, which was written during its first run, at a time when there was no internet yet, and I was still a law student, a lot of people already loved that poem. I'm talking about Love in the Language of Law. I think that would be my Christmas in our hearts if I were Jose Marichan. That poem would probably outlive me and it will stay there in the internet long after I'm gone. You know what I'm saying? Well, I do recall that poem, Love in the Language of Law, has already, I don't know, so many, I couldn't count how many versions of that poem I have written because it came out as really very baduy, sketchy, disoriented piece of writing that I was trying to write during a jeepney ride. I remember that night when I tried to write Love in the Language of Law. I was riding a jeepney with a law classmate and he heard me murmuring to myself, probably thinking this guy has lost his mind. So he asked, oh, anong sinasabi mo dyan? So I just said, stop, keep quiet, I'm trying to think, and there's a good idea percolating in my head, and I would like to put it down into a poem. So the first version was terrible. I intentionally burned all the copies of that first version of Love in the Language of Law. It stayed in my head for so many years. Maybe 10 years. Can you believe that? 10 years in your head. A piece of poetry that stayed 10 years in your head, unfinished. And then one day, when I'm already a lawyer, I was alone in my office and there was no client yet. So I started writing. This time, my intentions are clear. I want a real poem. Not really. I wouldn't say Shakespearean quality poem, but it must have some organization of thoughts. It must have some rhyming patterns. And so I began with this. Love in the Language of Law. Love is the law that you shouldn't break, or love shall break your heart instead. If you treat love like bouncing check, you'll pay the price with damages. Isn't that beautiful? Well, actually, in that first stanza of the poem, I combined the concept of law as an indomitable rule of conduct that we define it in law school, and the consequences of breaking the law. If, let's say, love is the law, well, if you break the law, that means you violated your promise of love, maybe you betrayed someone or break someone's heart, and the consequences would be you end up having your heart broken too. And also, if you treat love as something unimportant or a trivial matter, then the consequences would be you yourself would pay the price with damages to boot. Then the second verse, the second stanza of the poem goes like this. Love is the immovable property that always stays in place. It is the irresistible force that hate cannot replace. On this particular stanza, I combined civil law and criminal law. Civil law in the sense that it is an immovable property. We all know that in the second year of law school, we take up property, which is a book in the Civil Code of the Philippines. I remember the enumeration that I was made to memorize. That was terrible. That was hell on earth. Well, wait. Let me try to remember something. Immovable property. Land, roads, bridges, constructions of all kinds adhere to the soil. Trees, plants, growing fruits, etc., etc. Anyway, that is property. When we say immovable property, we are reminded of the subject property, and we are reminded of the subject civil code or civil law. And then, irresistible force. That, I think, is a concept in criminal law with respect to exempting circumstances when a person is forced to commit something upon the compulsion of an irresistible force. And then, we have the third stanza. It says, love is the right to remain silent, to douse the fire of oral argument. To love is to treat every disagreement as just another negotiable instrument. How corny. Well, actually, it's good. On that particular stanza, I'm talking about the right to remain silent, which is something that we learn from constitutional law, and then negotiable instrument, which again is something as a subject that few lawyers understand. I just couldn't get it. Anyway, the connection was quite colorful. The description was quite unique in itself. It says, well, you have the right to remain silent, to douse the fire of oral argument. That means in relationships, sometimes not saying anything or using your right to remain silent would keep the peace or perhaps save the relationship, right? And then also, to treat every disagreement as just another negotiable instrument means that we should always consider every conflict as something that can be solved, as something that can be discussed between us so that we could mend fences and, as they say, move on. And then the next stanza says, love is the juridical necessity to give, to do, and say I do. Love is the juridical capacity to act and say I love you too. So these are subjects in obligations and contracts, especially along the line to give, to do, and say I do. That is actually a variant of the definition of what is an obligation is. And the juridical capacity, of course, is the capacity to act as defined in the civil code. And then this one takes the cake. Love does not look for proof to be sure. With love, it's always res ipsa loquitur. My goodness. This one is quite good. Give it to me. Come on, say it's good, it's good. Actually, I love this line. We know what res ipsa loquitur means, right? It means the thing speaks for itself. So that means love doesn't need proof. Love doesn't ask for evidence. Love doesn't doubt, but love trusts. Love keeps the faith, and love speaks for itself. Res ipsa loquitur. That was a nice line, you know. Well, the next stanza reads like this. For all must love, and as a rule, there's no exception and no excuse for young and old, for wise and fool, and all objections are overruled. Again, this is quite nice, very dramatic, very OA, very emotive, but it was able to put the message across that, you know, everybody goes to that craziness at some point in our lives. It doesn't matter if you're young or old or rich or poor. And I saying this like the despot and the tyrant of love that I am, saying I accept no objections. Everybody is involved here. Parang ganon. It's building the excitement. It's building the momentum of the poem into a climax. And then I try to wrap it up with the next succeeding stanzas, which read like this. Wherefore, premises considered with love, I suppose, that judgment be rendered, this case be closed, this case dismissed with prejudice, sealed with a kiss, and so with love I rest my case. Very nice, right? Very nice. Isn't that beautiful? It's so simple. The lines just go smoothly. You get the beauty of the language, how cohesive it is, how it builds the momentum to that final lines that says, and so with love I rest my case. That poem brought me some incomparable happiness and even friends from everywhere. Kasi there was a time, that poem, after I have posted it, one professor read Love in the Language of Law in his lessons. I imagine that professor is siguro tinatamad magturo nung araw na yun. So, he pulled up a copy of Love in the Language of Law and read it in class. That professor was also previously my professor, and he described me to his students at that time na, estudyante ko yan, bobo yan eh. Well, of course, I know that professor is very kind. He's just kidding. I hope she is. Anyway, after that, my Facebook account was deluged with private messages asking if I wrote that poem, telling me that this poem, Love in the Language of Law, was read by our professor. Anyway, I realized that, lawyer or not, I am still a writer at heart. And in fact, I dedicated this YouTube channel not only to lawyering, but also to writing. Just to keep the flame, just to keep the love going. So well, I thank you all for sharing this moment to listen to my rant about love. And anyway, I hope you also enjoy this vlog. I hope to see your comments or maybe violent reactions. I hope you will share, like, or subscribe or whatever. You know the drill. I don't really care. But thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And so with love, I rest my case.